Canada has released the jobs report for July.
Is facing its second worst wildfire season on record, according to the Canadian
Canada is worse than you think. In just 3 years, this country has taken in more than 3 million immigrants. Yes, you heard that right. The fastest population surge in the developed world. Entire cities are bursting at the seams, housing waitlists stretch for years, and rents have exploded to levels that make New York look cheap. Across Canada, families are skipping meals, working 2 or 3 jobs, and still falling behind. The Canadian dream once meant security, home ownership, and a comfortable lifestyle. Now, for many, it means sleepless nights calculating which bill can be paid late. This is no longer a temporary crisis. It's the new reality. And if you think it's bad now, wait until you see the numbers behind Canada's rent market, because that's where the real shock begins. For years, Canadian renters watched prices explode, double-digit increases year after year. In Toronto, a 2-bedroom that rented for $2,400 in 2021 peaked near $3,300 just 2 years later. Vancouver's market was even more brutal, with some modest apartments going for over $4,000. Now in 2025, the rapid climb has slowed. Official data shows Toronto's average rent for a 1-bedroom hovering around $2,035, with a 2-bedroom at $2,690, actually 5.6% lower than last year. Vancouver's 2-bedroom average, still a staggering $3,170. But here's the catch. A pause in growth doesn't mean prices are affordable. Wages haven't suddenly leapt ahead. For a worker earning minimum wage, affording a 1-bedroom in these cities still requires 70-80 hours a week. Even in mid-tier cities like Calgary or Halifax, the rent-to-income ratio keeps households under constant pressure. Landlords may not be raising rents as aggressively, but the damage is done. People who signed leases during the peak are locked into costs that eat half their income. And for anyone hoping a price crash will save them, don't hold your breath. Because the real problem isn't just the price tag, it's the crushing shortage of places to live. Every headline about rent in 2025 mentions a cooling market. But that's a seasonal illusion. In cities like Toronto, prices tend to dip slightly in winter, only to surge again in spring and summer as students, new workers, and immigrants flood the market. The real story is the structural gap. Canada is millions of housing units short of what's needed. Even with construction cranes dotting city skylines, completions can't keep up with demand. In 2024, Canada added over 1.2 million new residents, but built fewer than 270,000 homes, most of them not affordable to the average renter or buyer. This isn't just a numbers game. It's about zoning rules that block high-density projects, slow municipal approval processes, and a construction industry struggling with labor shortages. Every delay compounds the shortage, and when you have too few homes, competition turns brutal. Vacancy rates hover near 1% in major cities, meaning dozens, sometimes hundreds of applicants chase the same unit. Small seasonal dips in rent may grab headlines, but they don't solve the long-term crisis. Because behind the housing shortage is another force that keeps pushing demand higher, a force driven by government policy itself. Canada has always defined itself as a nation of immigrants, and for decades, it worked. But in recent years, the pace has shifted from steady growth to a demographic sprint. In 2022, the government welcomed over 400,000 permanent residents. The target for 2025 was initially 500,000, but under mounting public pressure, it's been revised down to 395,000, with a gradual drop to 365,000 by 2027. On top of that, Ottawa has set a hard cap on temporary residents, including international students and foreign workers, at 5% of the population, or roughly 673,650 in 2025. The aim? To cool the housing market, ease healthcare strain, and give schools and infrastructure breathing room. But critics call it too little, too late. Between 2021 and 2024, Canada's population ballooned by more than 3 million, the fastest growth rate of any G7 country. The vast majority of newcomers settled in already overstretched cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. The economic rationale is clear: fill labor shortages, boost tax revenues, and counter an aging workforce. But the social cost is just as obvious. When housing is scarce, every new arrival intensifies competition. Rents go up, vacancy rates go down, and public frustration grows. And here's the twist: it's not immigrants themselves who created the crisis. Most are simply looking for the same thing Canadians once took for granted: opportunity, stability, and a decent life. The failure lies in policy planning. Welcoming record numbers without matching investment in housing and services was like pouring water into a cracked glass. It was bound to spill over. This gap between government intent and public experience is now shaping Canada's political battlefield. And the consequences are about to hit the nation's leadership hard. For years, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau framed high immigration levels as a win-win: solve labor shortages, fuel economic growth, and preserve Canada's image as an open, welcoming nation. But as rents soared, grocery bills ballooned, and wait times stretched into months, the narrative shifted. By late 2024, public patience had snapped. Polls showed that 58% of Canadians believed the country was taking in too many immigrants, double the share from just 2 years earlier. Protests erupted in cities that rarely saw political demonstrations, from Vancouver to Halifax. Facing re-election in 2025, Trudeau made his sharpest policy U-turn yet, capping immigration targets, imposing limits on temporary residents, and promising a surge in housing investment. The move was seen by some as a long overdue acknowledgement of reality, by others as a cynical attempt to salvage political survival. Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre seized the moment, hammering the government for building the plane while flying it. His rallies framed the housing crisis, healthcare delays, and food inflation as symptoms of mismanagement, not inevitable trends. The backlash is no longer just political. It's personal. Many Canadians feel their quality of life has declined under Trudeau's watch, and trust in Ottawa's ability to fix it is crumbling. But while politics sets the stage, the real cost of this crisis is paid in living rooms, grocery aisles, and bank accounts, where everyday people are fighting to hold on to what's left of the Canadian dream. Walk down any street in Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal, and you'll see the crisis written on people's faces. Young professionals sharing cramped apartments well into their 30s, families cutting back on meals to pay rent, students juggling 2 part-time jobs while living in converted basements with no natural light. For lower-income workers, the math simply doesn't work. In British Columbia, you need nearly double the minimum wage to afford a 1-bedroom apartment without spending more than 30% of your income on rent. The benchmark for affordability. The result? More Canadians than ever are spending half, sometimes even 2/3, of their paycheck just to keep a roof overhead. Debt levels are climbing, savings are shrinking, and the traditional markers of stability, home ownership, starting a family, building wealth, feel like relics from another era. The pressure is especially heavy on Gen Z and millennials, who face a future where owning property is a statistical improbability. This isn't just an economic issue, it's a social one. When people feel they're running in place, hope fades, and with it, trust in the system. The question now is, can Canada reverse this trajectory? Or are we watching the slow unraveling of a dream? The answer depends on what happens next. Fixing Canada's affordability crisis won't be quick, but it is possible. Economists agree the housing shortage is the central pressure point. That means scaling up construction far beyond current levels, reforming zoning laws to allow more high-density housing, and fast-tracking approvals so projects aren't stuck in years of red tape. Massive investment in affordable and social housing is essential, as is targeting infrastructure upgrades so cities can actually support more residents. Some suggest tax incentives for developers who build below-market units, or penalties for those who leave properties vacant. On immigration, the new caps may relieve short-term strain, but without careful alignment between population growth and housing supply, the cycle will repeat. A balanced approach, recruiting workers in sectors that truly need them, while ensuring homes and services are ready, could restore stability. Wages also need attention. If incomes don't keep pace with living costs, even the most ambitious housing plan will fall short. Ultimately, this is a test of political will. It demands cooperation between federal, provincial, and municipal governments, and a long-term commitment that survives election cycles. The question is, will Canada choose bold reform now, or wait until impossible to live here becomes the permanent reality? Some blame government mismanagement, others point to global trends. But one thing is clear, the path forward isn't guaranteed. So here's my question to you. If you were in charge tomorrow, what's the very first thing you'd do to make Canada livable again? Cut immigration? Build housing? Raise wages? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious where you stand.